Hi guys, this is Fefner Masamune, and that is Final Fantasy, now 25% less final. So, way back in the day when Square and Enix hadn't merged, Square was, well, kind of going bankrupt. With little else to do other than, well, go under, they decided to put all their resources into one last game, hence the name Final Fantasy. And, well, you can probably guess how well it did in the end, given the numerous, sequels and spin-offs. It's just a tiny little indication of their success, right? Just tiny, but yeah. Anyway, it was a massive success, and then Square went on to make an entire series off of it, and despite the fact that it was relatively popular over here, we didn't get the next two games. But regardless, this is the first game, and, well, actually, technically it's not the first game. It's a remake of the first game for the Game Boy Advance, because I always do things for the Game Boy Advance, always and forever. It won't stop. But seriously, to be honest, I mean, obviously the NES version did do a lot, but I find NES RPGs really outdated, and the original version of this game is no exception. I'd much prefer to play this version of the game, and as you can see, we actually have a number of characters to choose from. Unlike later games in the series, we actually have a number of different, well, that's redundant, but we actually have different classes to choose from, and if you're thinking this is, kind of similar to some sort of tabletop RPG like Dungeons & Dragons, well, that's pretty much it. That was the inspiration for the, well, not the inspiration, but a relatively big one for this game. But anyway, obviously there's more than just 4 classes, there are actually 6, so I'm just going to go through them real quick, but I'm going to have Future Me do that. Take it away, Future Me! Thanks, past me! To be so young again. Anyway, first off we have the Warrior. Pretty much an essential member for any party. They have some of the highest stats in the game, and they can pretty much use any weapon or armor. Their biggest drawback in terms of stats is that the stats they don't really need are relatively low. Not that big a drawback. They can use some magic later on in the game, but that's not really their focus. Their focus is killing things and taking damage, which they do better than anything else. However, they are kind of costly to maintain, so keep that in mind, and I suppose don't use more than one. Although thieves don't have as good stats as warriors, their agility stat allows them to do a pretty good amount of damage, making them also capable fighters. Which is good because for some reason Square didn't add a steal command to this game, but whatever. They have a decent amount of armor and weapons to choose from, although nowhere near the selection that the warrior Red Mage has. They can also learn magic later on just like the warrior, however that's not really the focus of their class. There's not really all that much special to them since they're nowhere near as powerful as warriors, and other than that, there's not really all that much about them. But again, they have high speed, so there's that. The Monk class is probably the most unique one in this game. It has a very low selection of weapons and armor, and in fact, it might actually be lower than that of any mage. However, he doesn't need it. If he doesn't have any weapons or armor equipped, he gets a strength and defense bonus, respectively. Basically, this means he's pretty much the cheapest class to maintain, but he still does a lot of damage, and while his defense isn't exactly the best, it's still pretty decent. One thing to note about the class, though, is it's the only one that doesn't get any magic at any point in the game, so if that affects anything, well, then don't go with Monk. However, if you want an easy class to maintain, well, Monk is pretty much the perfect dude for the job. White Mage is about as ideal for any party as the Warrior is. While her stats may not be all that impressive, they don't need to be. She's got high MP and high intelligence, and, well, that's all she really needs to be a dedicated healer. And in fact, no one else in the game is as good as healing as she is. She gets all the good spells, and while she does have attacking spells, the main importance of her in the party is the fact that she's very good at healing, which of course is needed because there will be a lot of things battering you throughout the course of the game. So, well, pick a White Mage unless you want to go for some sort of challenge run. Stat-wise, black mages are pretty similar to white mages. Of course, the huge difference between their classes is the fact that black mages focus on destructive magic rather than curative magic. Of course, as a dedicated magic user, black mage has some of the highest intelligence in the game. Unfortunately, as a dedicated magic user, he doesn't have all that much strength to carry him through battles. And unfortunately, like white mage, if there's nothing he has to do involving magic, he's kind of a dead weight. And unfortunately, he can't really do much in between battles. Red mages are probably my favorite class in the series, which is unfortunate because Square really tries its hardest to make them suck. If I remember correctly, they actually received a downgrade from the NES version, and honestly, their HP and MP gains are pretty abysmal, even compared to the other mages. On the bright side, their main gimmick is that they can actually use both black and white magic. I don't think they can really replace dedicated white mages, however, they can actually replace black mages, to be honest, because they do get a good number of spells. They just don't get all of the black magic. In addition, they can also use a pretty good amount of weapons and armor, not as much as a warrior, but more than a thief, making them also good at just basic combat. Overall, while its stats aren't the best, the fact that it can pretty much do anything in the party is quite the advantage, and unlike later games, they're still good enough to have a good spot in the party. And since that's the last of the characters, back to you, past me. Thanks, future me. You did a lot more than I wanted to do. So anyway, now that we have our entire party, I might as well just quickly go over all of them. Here they are. Oh man, aren't they neat? So yeah, I have Vance, my warrior. He's kind of a necessity, I suppose. I mean, you could go without a warrior, but why would you want to? Actually, neat little fact about my monk. I don't usually use monks, to be honest. I usually use thieves, and, well, this was kind of a spontaneous decision. I just thought, might as well use a monk for no real reason other than I haven't really used one, so there you go. And I named him Max because, I don't know, Shining Force, that's why. Got my white mage, also a necessity pretty much. Named her Lynx, I don't know why. I don't know. No other name really fit for some reason. Guess I'm just bad at thinking up names or something. And lastly, I have Dante, my red mage. Get it, Dante, because he wears red and his hair's white and stuff? Oh man, aren't I clever? Oh, I'm so totally clever. No, I'm not. Anyway, since we have our party, my party already, I think it's about time to start this thing. And eventually, past me complied. Notice how it doesn't say anything about fire. That certainly won't be important. Oh no, not at all. No, certainly not. I just mentioned it because, well, it certainly was an oversight. Just out of thin air. It's like, one moment there's just empty space, then boom! Warriors of Light. Spontaneous peopling. It's a real condition. And here we are on the world map. But before we get into anything big, I'm actually going to go through the menus real quick and just check on everything, so I'll go do that. Okay guys, this is a super complicated tutorial. In order to use items, you go into the use items thing. You can also sort the items so they'll be in an order, and key items are important items. This was totally a necessary tutorial. Totally, guys. Totally. Actually, I would like to bring up magic, though. As you can see, we have 8 levels of magic, and there are actually 3 spaces per level. And both Lynx and Dante have their little level 1 thing that's white instead of gray. That's because they can use magic, but Vance and Max can't. If the level is white instead of gray, that means you can use magic in that level. And there's a few other exceptions, but yeah. Overall, if it's white, you can use it. That's basically it. Oh, by the way, for equipment, I believe you can actually remove Max's weapon, and he'll be slightly better without it. I mean, it makes sense because he's a monk, but yeah, I think he fights better with his hands. Also, here are the stats for all my characters in case you want to see them. They're not that different at the moment. Also, for anyone who doesn't know, I'll just go through the stats real quick. HP and MP, that's your health and your mana, respectively. Strength, I'm not sure about the difference between strength and attack. I think one is sort of a combination of, like your base strength and your weapons. I think that's what attack is, but I'm not quite sure. But anyway, agility is basically how fast you move, but it also determines how many attacks you get, which, of course, increases damage. You have intelligence, which is basically your magic stat. Your stamina, I have no clue what that does. Luck determines criticals, I believe. Accuracy is, of course, how likely you are to hit your enemy. Defense is how much damage you absorb, obviously. And evasion is how likely you are to avoid an enemy attack. That's all pretty obvious, other than stamina, but let's be honest. Whoever knows what stamina does. That and vitality. I'm never quite sure what either of those stats do. I mean, I've checked around, but I can't really find stamina. I think it's just sort of a vague remark, like, oh, stamina's a thing that happens. Anyway, as you can see, formation in this game, you can just change the formation of your party. Obviously, that's kind of, obvious. However, unlike in later Final Fantasy games, you actually can't move characters to the back row. As you can see, I can try with Lynx, but she is just in one row forever. Also, I didn't show the save screen because that's kind of spoiler-tastic, and saving's not really that interesting anyway. Alright, so finally we can sort of start. This is the first town in the game, and it's Cornelia, which is apparently the city of dreams. I don't know where the dreams come in, but whatever. Anyway, I don't know why they opened the menu, but anyway, here we got the inn. Of course, inns are places where you can rest and heal yourself up and replenish your mana. I don't believe downed characters will actually come back to life if you rest at an inn. You actually need to go to a church. Also, these guys here will give you tutorials, but, I pretty much know all this, and it's really not that, difficult to figure out. I'll explain it all anyway, so no need. And also, this inn is cheap, so keep that in mind. Just keep it in mind. So, we also have this dancer here, which, unlike in later games where dancers, danced, she'll actually tell you important information about where you need to go next. And that guy's just telling me to do the crystals. I already know that, but yeah. Anyway, here we have the weapon shop and the armor shop. This is the weapon shop, and this is the armor shop. Easy enough. Over here we have the 2 magic shops. I'll rescue the princess later. We have white magic and black magic. White magic is basically curative magic, and black magic is, damage-dealing magic. Simple enough, right? It mostly stays the same. There are a few exceptions to that, actually. Sometimes white magic can do damage, but usually that's how it works. Anyway, yeah, that's the church. That's where you can revive your characters. I'm not quite sure if it will remove any sort of death-like status effects like stone. Not quite sure because I never need churches. I mean, if a character dies, I just quit and reload. That's usually what I do. And yeah, here are the items. Don't buy sleeping bags. If you're gonna buy anything here, don't buy sleeping bags, just buy potions. Sleeping bags are kind of worthless because you'll get tents pretty early on, and they're far superior. And of course, here we have the weapon shop. Generally, as I believe I said, future me will say probably, most of the weapons and armor will go to red mages and warriors. Monks don't so much need weapons and armor. They'll usually not have as much of a good selection. Neither will pretty much any other class. Although Thief does have a decent selection. Still, though, red mages and warriors, they pretty much have the best. Also, out of the magic here, don't bother with Dia. Get Cure, Protect, and Blink because those are the useful spells, but Dia, while it deals damage to undead enemies, is not really that useful, because, to be honest, undead enemies aren't that hard to kill anyway, and I think they have a weakness to fire. I'm not sure in this game, but they usually do. Anyway, here we have a bunch of Black Mage spells: Fire, Sleep, Focus, and Thunder. I'd only suggest getting Fire and Thunder because Sleep and Focus are status effect magics, and if you know RPGs, they're generally pretty useless. So yeah, just stick with Fire and Thunder because those are, again, like everything else, maybe not essential, but they are pretty important because there are elemental enemies in this game, so they do help. I don't really use magic that frequently unless it's against, like, a really hard enemy or against a boss or something, or if I'm really impatient I'll use it, but yeah, overall, definitely make sure to pick that up. And of course, pick up Cure, because if you pick up Cure, well, you probably won't die. So, now that we're done here, I think it's about time to leave. So, when you're ready to leave, just go and talk to one of these guys at the exit to the village, and he'll tell you that the king's seeking the crystals, so go over there by ways of teleportation. Means of teleportation, rather. And he is literally just named the King. Whoa, look at that shine! That's like 3 frames of animation or something. Hey, how dare you doubt me? Obviously I have to be the warrior. I mean, look at Dante, he's badass. He can't just be any other person. He has got to be some sort of legendary warrior of light or something like that. Well, if you have a nun who can match him, then why don't you send the nun? Yes, I am a living, breathing early 1900s comedy. Why do you ask? Wait, what? You're not going to do that until I rescue the princess? But what if people need to use the bridge? I mean, I'll rescue the princess anyway. You really don't need to force me into it, but seriously. Yeah, I already mentioned that, but seriously, I'm not gonna rebuild the bridge until the Warriors of Light save the princess. But sir, I've got to get off this island. My wife might think I'm dead or something. Yeah, whatever, I don't care. Warriors of Light, go kill that Garland guy. Anyway, no sort of promotion items in that shield. So, I guess I'll take a look around the castle real quick, talk to some people. They'll probably have nothing interesting to say. You went with the princess? Oh, who would have guessed? I was kind of hoping you would have, like, dropped her halfway there, and then it would be like, oh, we just have to go halfway across the continent, and then we'll just find the princess, and we'll be like, yay, let's get the princess back home. And then the day would be saved, and yeah, that would be all. Well, that's what I'm planning on, lady. Don't you worry about that. My sister? You will want your sister. By the way, she's not shaking in fear or trembling or anything like that. Sarah's been missing for like 3 weeks now. She's kind of over it. That's just a speech impediment, unfortunately. Hey, your daughter's been kidnapped, lady. Oh, well. So apparently this lady has a problem with ellipses. Although I guess to be fair, I have seen worse, but still, she's got that ellipses problem. That's also a speech impediment. Also, before we leave, let's just check out what's up here, because there is something we're going to want to keep in mind. Hey there, old man, what's up? 400 years ago? What's the sense in that? They've probably rusted by now. Oh, and it's bound by the Mystic Key. Oh, my least favorite words in this game. Other than Warmac. Or Omega. Or Shinryu. Anyway, that's pretty much all there is to do up here. Again, keep that Mystic Key in mind, because we're going to need to pick that up later. Well, we're going to need to come back here later. I guess technically we'll also need to pick up the Mystic Key, but yeah, unrelated. Anyway, let's finally start our journey, but first let's save. Oh man, exciting saving action! Pretty much nothing happened, but we've lost some money. Anyway, if we could just get into a battle. Anytime now. There we go, fine. Really? Really? I got ambushed in my first battle against some relatively decent enemies. Figures. Anyway, so, this battle system is relatively simplistic since, of course, it's based off, well, the first game. We can attack, we can use our magic, we can use items. Actually, we can also use our equipment. That does have some purpose, you know, going into our equipment from the items menu, but there's nothing to that now. We can also equip things mid-fight, and we can also run away. As far as I know, there's actually no defend button. I mean, I've tried holding that in the triggers, but nothing appears, so I guess there's no defend command in this game, which is kind of weird. I guess if you need some time to kill, then you'll have to use an item or something. It is kind of weird, though. You'd think they would have at least added a defend command, but no, apparently not. Anyway, this battle isn't too difficult or anything, so let's just kick the crap out of these guys. Also, just a quick mention, in the original NES version, if you targeted an enemy which was killed by some previous guy, your attacks would actually be cancelled, but, you know, that doesn't happen anymore. You would normally miss, but not in this game. It'll just go to a random enemy, which is much better than not happening at all. Also, seriously, one experience until my next level? Really?